InspireMD President and CEO, Marvin Schlossman. Let's have Marvin on. Hey, Marvin.
Hi, guys. How are you today?
Wonderful. How are you, sir?
Very well, thanks. Thanks very much.
Now, we've got an investor, some retail traders, and some investors, very inquisitive folks. Would you mind giving a brief overview of what you guys are doing over at InspireMD?
Absolutely. So thank you for the opportunity today. InspireMD's mission really is to change the way in which carotid artery disease is managed and strokes are prevented. And that is an awfully big mission and bold statement, but I think our inventive technology platform using our MicroNet mesh really is a game-changing solution to how carotid artery disease has been managed. And we believe it's the differentiation that will propel this huge opportunity forward in terms of medical management of strokes.
Amazing. I can't wait to hear more about it.
Great. Thanks. So I'll move forward here in the presentation. As I mentioned before, we are all about changing the way in which carotid artery disease is managed and strokes are prevented. And we do this by way of an inventive MicroNet technology platform. It is a very thin mesh outer lay on top of our stent technology, which prevents embolic events from occurring and provides embolic protection, which is both procedurally and post-procedurally really critical and important. And I'll describe why that's the case a little later in the presentation. But the MicroNet technology platform is really the differentiation in what we're trying to accomplish. So as is always the case, our leadership really matters. And I'm pleased to be able to announce that Gary Rubin, who is really a very, very impressive interventional cardiologist in the field, has joined our board of directors. He was a big part of carotid stenting from the very beginning. And I think it's a big proxy to our organization that Gary's joined our company as a director and is really giving us strategic guidance in terms of how we break through in terms of change of standard of care. So the platform is ubiquitous in a lot of different applications, and we're taking on stroke as our main focus for the time being with our Seaguard product for carotid application. But there are many different opportunities to apply our MicroNet technology, and we have a full pipeline of opportunities to do that in different indications in the body, which I'll mention later in the presentation. So why is this important and why now? Because most of the major landscape of opportunity in converting open surgical procedures to endovascular procedures has already taken place. This whole notion that a vascular procedure would be done as open surgery anymore is really in the past, except for one area that we feel is the greenfield opportunity here, which is carotid artery disease. So why is this the case? Many technology platforms have been tried, but up to this point, surgery is still the standard of care. And I think a big part of that is because the platforms up to this point have just not been sufficient in terms of their clinical outcomes to be able to demonstrate superiority. But the idea of converting open surgical procedures to endovascular solutions is certainly on the horizon. We all know that stroke is a big problem, only second behind ischemic heart disease in terms of its devastating effect. What's interesting about strokes is that the issue here is that there's not a lot of pre-notice when you have a stroke, so to speak, and the devastation of the result of a stroke, both in death and disability, is significant. So unlike heart disease, strokes occur suddenly and the impact is devastating. So we think that this is an opportunity to really change the game in terms of overall health globally. So let me give you a little bit of background as to why this is important. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see carotid endarterectomy, which is an open surgical procedure. Basically what happens is they open the artery and they clean it out surgically. And this is standard of care. And up to this point, carotid stenting has not really surpassed open surgery for this reason, because you've got open-celled stents up to this point, which is pretty much common practice. And those open cells rely or provide this opening that allows embolic events to occur, especially after the procedure is completed. I'll give you this visualization that I think tells the whole story. On the left-hand side, you see a 90% occlusion of the carotid artery. And you see the associated infarct in the brain, the stroke that occurs in the brain from this closure of the artery. On the right-hand side, you see that in an open-celled stent, it's opened the artery visually, but on the right-hand side there in the brain, you see these multiple infarcts that happen because the open-celled stent is allowing these mini strokes to occur. So what's the big difference here? The difference is in conventional stents, you have this open system, and in ours, we cover the inside of the stent and the endothelium to protect the brain after the procedure occurs. So on the bottom of the page, you see an inside view of the artery, and you see this plaque protruding in the vortex of blood flow. And that plaque that protrudes through there will break off and end up in the brain because of the proximity of your carotid arteries to the brain. And below you see where the micronet seals that plaque and doesn't allow these strokes to occur. So this gives you an idea of the size of the cell of the closure here. So Seaguard with micronet has the smallest opening in the market. And we've optimized that opening size with a lot of research and development and a lot of proof in clinical application as to optimize the size of the opening for optimal blood flow, but at the same time to keep these plaques from breaking off and causing strokes. So evidence is really the language of our marketplace, and we have unmatched clinical evidence in terms of how we perform on a day-to-day routine. And I think this is really the story behind why we believe that now is the time and standard of care is on the horizon, because we've proven our technology. We have CE mark, and we serve 33 countries currently and are beginning our US FDA trial in the July timeframe. So we're excited about the fact that the evidence behind Seaguard is significant and continues to grow. This is just an example of some of the many studies that occur. Over 1,700 patients have been enrolled in studies both in the past and ongoing to demonstrate our superiority and why Seaguard really is the game changer here. So without going into a lot of detail, let me just show you this slide, which is really the aggregate of all of these studies. We reduce death, stroke, and myocardial infarction to below 1.7%, as opposed to conventional stents and open surgery being in the 4 and 5% range. So this is a really significant story that has never been told in the marketplace. And as I said before, that center line there of conventional stents is really why up to this point, this market has not converted from open surgical applications and endarterectomy to stenting. So we think that this data, this aggregated data, is really compelling, and it's a part of our day-to-day story. So this gives you just a sense of the size of the opportunity. More than 600,000 patients are diagnosed with high-grade carotid stenosis, and those patients are being treated. We believe that there are as many as 3 to 5 million people walking around that have undiagnosed carotid artery disease. And so we think that this market will continue to grow as more non-invasive solutions like stenting become available. So our company is currently serving 33 countries. Over 90% of our sales are through distributor partners. We just opened a huge market in Brazil and are about to announce a direct sales effort in France. We have efforts going on in Japan, South Korea, and we also announced a few months ago a distribution partnership in China. So our global expansion is really one of the key pillars to our growth beyond the 33 markets that we serve. And as I said before, we're about to start our IDE trial in July for the US market, which is obviously the largest and most significant. Let me talk about that for just a second. We have already funded the effort for the US trial end to end, and we'll be enrolling 315 patients at up to 40 centers. We think that this effort will take from start to finish about 3 years to get to approval, but we're thrilled to be able to have Gary Rubin, Christina Brennan advising us, but most importantly, Chris Metzger will be leading the effort as the PI for the trial. And Chris is recognized as being the top carotid stenter in the US market. We've invited 15 different investigators to join the trial itself, and all have accepted. So we're really thrilled to be able to build a robust story around the US marketplace, both during this FDA effort and rolling into commercial activity. We're not a new company. We've sold over 20,000 stents. We prove our work day to day. We think that the timing of the change here is significant and it's important because we're finally rounding the turn where endovascular solutions will become standard of care. It's really only been a matter of time, and it's been somewhat dependent, obviously, on the technology platforms that are available. So this is a little bit of our roadmap. In 2020, we continue to demonstrate Seaguard as the superior technology. We've launched in Brazil. We started our US trial, as I said, in 2021. We're advancing the evidence. But 2021 is really a commercially focused year, notwithstanding COVID, which we're getting behind us, fortunately, in most of our markets. We're growing our South American effort. We're building an Asian growth strategy around China, and we're beginning to enroll in our FDA trial. So we think that there's tremendous potential about changing the standard of care through Seaguard. We've got a very robust intellectual property portfolio. We continue to build that. Obviously, as an R&D based company, this is a key variable for us, and we pay attention to it every day. And then just as a baseline of understanding, we play amongst giants in this marketplace. And this is why we think that value inflection and potential liquidity options in the future and collaboration with these strategics is really important. They all have their eyes on us because carotid artery disease and stenting in particular is of interest to all of the major strategic players in the marketplace. And so we have ongoing dialogue with many of these companies. They are looking for the innovation. They're looking for companies like ours to build this change, and are certainly interested in where we're headed. So we feel really good about the potential and the opportunity to collaborate with the strategics. Let me give you a little proxy of sort of where we're headed and why we think from a baseline of investment, we think we're a good bet at this point. Silk Road Medical has established a real standard of care with their TCAR product, which focuses on vascular surgeons, and they're only limited to the U.S. market. But they've done a tremendous job of creating this recognition that carotid artery stenting is really the future of the market. Now, they do it with a very different approach. They focus on their delivery system, which is referred to as TCAR. They only focus on the vascular surgical community. And we believe our focus is different, which is our stent technology, because ultimately that's what matters. What's left in the patient's body and how that performs is really ultimately the predicate to how the successful clinical event happens. And so we're really excited about the fact that Silk Road has built, continues to build in this marketplace, and we're positioned very well to be able to focus on our stent and why we think we have a superior technology. So that's our storyline, and happy to fill in the blanks and answer any questions.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Marvin, for that presentation. Guys, drop your questions in the chat. We do have a couple here. When can we expect revenue to ramp up outside of China, or out of China, actually, is the question.
Yeah, very good question. So we've selected a partner in China to do our exclusive distribution, and they are handling the regulatory pathway for us. We hope that it is a similar pathway that we're looking at in the US, but it may be possible to accelerate that in China. But we're thinking general terms are 2 to 2.5 years is what we're being told by our partners in China.
Okay, fantastic. And do you have an idea of the size of that revenue that might be realized?
We don't have a full sense of the revenue opportunity, although the reason the Asian market is particularly important to us is because they are very much a stent-centric market, unlike the US and Europe, that's much more surgical focused. So they have a disposition towards stenting as it is right now. Much of it will depend on the uptake of the marketplace itself and reimbursement, but we think it's a very robust market, including China.
Fantastic. Okay, and then another one that we have here is, how do you compare the overall sales of Seaguard to competitor sales?
Yeah, so in the served markets that we're in, we generally have 20 to 30% market share in those served markets that we currently have. Our goal is to continue to build our market share within the space that we operate, but a big part of the growth of our company is built on converting these vascular surgeons and surgeries over to stenting. The existing stenting market is still a relatively small pool. We want to build our share within that, but our goal collectively is to figure out how to convert more surgeries over to the stenting side.
Okay. And could you speak a little bit to the marketing side of your growth strategy?
Yeah, so several initiatives are taking place. One, we have a Centers of Excellence program where we actually go in and proctor. We do it now real time again. We missed about a year or so with COVID, but we do online as well as real time proctoring of individual physicians. This is very much a touch business. We're in the cath lab every day with our physicians. It's about building credibility, and the stickiness of our technology is quite good. Once we convert endovascular operators to Seaguard, we generally hold share very well because the stent performs quite well. So we're focusing much of our effort and resources to our commercial focus of sales.
And is there anything on the horizon that you would advise investors to be being attuned to?
Yeah, so we are very much about execution. We raised an oversubscribed round of funding a while back and added about $35 million to our base, our treasury, and so we're in very good shape in terms of operating capital for the business. Our goal is to put our head down and go execute now on these key milestones that we've talked about. So we're going to grow share. We're going to build our global reach, and we're going to enroll patients in our clinical trial in the U.S. and hopefully build a really nice tailwind in terms of entering new markets.
Beautiful. And I apologize if you already answered this, but do you have a date or a quarter or some time frame in mind for when you might achieve profitability?
We don't at this point. I mean, we're trying to focus on our commercial growth strategy, and obviously adding Asia and the U.S. markets into our mix makes a huge impact on our ability to drive both revenue and profitability.
Okay. And then what is the one thing in your mind that people could hang on as an investor that separates you from your peers or your competitors?
Yeah, I think this is a long play, right? I think we're looking for investors that really want to understand the story and understand that we're an execution-minded company. We are an R&D business, but we are transitioning very quickly into the commercial world, and the strategics of the world have their eyes on us. They are looking for innovators to break through and create standard of care options, and once they do, there's a lot of value inflection that comes with that. So our goal is to really change this marketplace through utilization and making Seaguard the standard of care. So I think that's really our focus, and will continue to be our focus is on the stent.
Yeah, well said. And I think that's easy enough for us traders to remember. So final, we are just about at time. Final remarks that you might like to leave us with.
Yeah, I think in terms of enterprise value, that we believe that this is a great opportunity for investors. We look at our business in terms of execution and growth and building new standard of care in a segment of the market that we think truly is ready to make this change. And converting open surgeries to endovascular options has really been part and parcel to how all this change occurs, and we think we've got the game-changing technology there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marvin, for being with us today.
Thanks so much.